Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Godzilla film podcast episode. Now, before I get started, I just want to say that July has been a really busy month for me. That I went on my family vacation to Lake of the Ozarks, Missouri, to Lone Oak Point Resort. I even made a fan-made commercial about the resort. If you want to check that out in the description below, and I just got back from gfest actually a week ago, and it was a ton of fun. And I get to spend time with my online friends who are in my podcast. In my previous episode, I get to meet Nathan from Monster Island Film Vault and Kaiju Kim and Daniel Nigmana from the Godzilla Novelization Project. Yeah, so it was a ton of fun there. And I get to meet Linda Miller, who was in my King Kong Escape podcast episode, and I got to meet Don Fry, and it was a ton of fun there. But anyway, so today's Godzilla film podcast episode we'll be talking about is Godzilla versus Megaguirus from 2000. That people thought it was a direct sequel to Godzilla 2000 Millennium, but no, this is a separate standalone film, and this is a different Millennium era universe that's related to the original 1954 Godzilla. But anyway, we have a very special guest here for tonight, and he is he does many interviews, and he makes fan-made trailers on his YouTube channel. So give it up to the monster reporter himself, Nick Adams.
Good to be here.
How's it going, bro?
Oh, it's going great. How about you?
I've been doing good. I'm looking forward to do this episode with you. Since you had me on your channel as a guest, that you interviewed me, like, actually, it was back in October, was it? I think it was October.
I think so.
Yeah, since you interviewed me back in October, and I thought I wanted to have you as a guest on my show for paying you back, and now, like, here we are talking about Godzilla versus Megaguirus. I also noticed the original Japanese title, Godzilla vs. Megaguirus, the G Extermination Strategy. I have a hard time saying it.
It's a mouthful, isn't it?
Yeah. And we have a guest in the comments. Here's Walter. How's it going, Kaiju bro?
Yeah. Good to have you.
I ran into him at gfest a week ago, and it was good to seeing him there.
That's awesome. I missed you guys. I wish I could go. It's always the wrong time of year for me, but I get a lot of FOMO, fear of missing out, from seeing the pictures of everyone having a great time at gfest. But I'm glad for you guys. I'm glad you get to get together and geek out on all things kaiju.
Yeah, so I'm really asking you a few questions and about. Let me ask you this: like, how do you first discover this film for the first time? Try to remember back then, like, how you first discovered it.
I actually have evidence of this because during my college years was 2000 to 2005. And of course, we had Godzilla 2000 came out in theaters. And I did not, unfortunately, during that time of my life, it was quite busy. I didn't get to see it on the big screen, but I did get to see it on home video and on television later. But that sparked into me, where's all these other Godzilla films that Japan is producing? And I hear about them, and I even see figures for them, but they're not out, until we started getting more and more imports of these DVDs. We didn't get much of the Heisei series, and obviously the Millennium series was happening, but they weren't coming over here fast enough anyways. And so eBay eBay was good to me, and so finding these as imports, finding these as either bootlegs or people who made their own copies or official releases. So I actually ordered from eBay this Godzilla versus Megaguirus VCD. This is a video CD that doesn't play in all players, but it plays in some. Okay. I froze there for a second, but I'm glad to be back. Okay,
yeah.
So yeah,
yeah, you were kind of froze, keep glitching or freezing there.
Anyways,
yeah. Okay.
So, but yeah, I got it. So this doesn't have subtitles or English, so you were pretty much watching it for the monster action, the special effects stuff, which was fun, so at least it had that going for it. But of course I didn't understand it. But yeah, it was around 2002 that I actually found this on eBay, ordered it, brought it over, and was able to at least watch it on a computer screen, because it's it's not the greatest of picture quality, because it's on CD, not DVD. So it doesn't hold as much data. So therefore the picture quality isn't that great, but it didn't matter. I was excited to see a Godzilla film. So yeah, imported this from Japan. Love that artwork there. And it even has the English language there, yet there's no English on this. I mean, it even has a description that's written in both Japanese and English, but yet again, nothing. So I was really lost watching it, but I did get to see Godzilla's, amazing, slam on Megaguirus, which was just incredible.
Well, I have my figures right here. It says you are showing
nice.
their CD, and yeah, so this is not the new Monster Series Bandai version.
Okay.
This is like the original, I mean, but with different color.
Yeah, I was going to say the colors are a bit different on that guy.
Yeah, and at least I had the big G right here. And
there he is, yeah.
It is the same figure that I showed in my Godzilla 2000 podcast episode with Daniel and Kaiju Kim.
That's right. Don't you love those purple dorsal fins?
Yeah, I gotta love the purple fins.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I will tell you how I first discovered this film. I mean, so this was my second Millennium Godzilla film I ever watched, right after I discovered Godzilla 2000. I think a few months after, I think it was back in between fall and winter, that months after I discovered Godzilla 2000, that I went to the different local Blockbuster store in my old hometown that is right near where Chuck E. Cheese is. And that I went in there and I was trying to find some Godzilla films, and I actually went to an aisle that you can actually buy a DVD movie without even renting it.
Nice.
And I discovered Godzilla versus Megaguirus on DVD. And when I first discovered it, I was like, I thought this was like a sequel to Godzilla 2000, but when I got home and watched it, I mean, I did buy the DVD, but when I got home, I just put it in and I just watched it. So right after I played the film, I actually watched it in its original Japanese with English subtitle, but I didn't watch it in English. So this is like my first Godzilla film I ever watched it in Japanese with English subtitled.
Oh wow, and it wasn't a problem, right? I mean, you still loved it, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, I was so little, and I was sort of like, oh, what are they saying? Yeah, that was before I understand Japanese. I mean, yeah, so I'll never forget this moment that my mom helped me with it. I mean, she saw me watching this film in the original Japanese language, and she she thought, "Why are you watching this in Japanese? Put it in English." And then she hit the menu and she selected English for me, and
Ah,
then I finally understand what they're saying.
yeah. But did you start picking up some of the Japanese language as a result of, watching Godzilla films in their original Japanese?
I believe so. I think, yeah.
Well, you're already ahead of me because I do not speak like hardly a couple of words. I couldn't even ask you where the bathroom is or where's the best place to get a coffee. So you're already ahead of me on that. I could probably say hello and goodbye and a couple of other things, and mostly Gojira. So kaiju.
Yeah, so yeah, but yeah, so I think like I said it and how I first discovered it, but this is the first Millennium Godzilla film that ever had a standalone film. I mean, this is not a sequel to 2000
Hmm?
because like before the film came out, like after Godzilla 2000 was released, it didn't quite hit in the box office in Japan, but Toho was hoping they will try to make more to, to keep up with their giant monster, and so they did. Try to they were going to try to make many sequels, kind of like the Heisei Godzilla films, but they decided to do it their own separate film, like a standalone film. I mean, so yeah, like I said, this is not a sequel to 2000. This is only a standalone, and it's just like, I mean, this is like a Godzilla Millennium film, but from a different Millennium universe.
And that's funny, isn't it? Because it starts with those recreated scenes from 54. So it's a direct sequel
Yeah.
to 54. Ignore everything else. Ignore
Yep.
the fact that Godzilla was killed by the oxygen destroyer.
That's
And
right.
yeah, and came back to fight Kong, Ghidra, Rodan, Mothra, everyone. Forget all that.
Yep.
We've been dealing with Godzilla by himself for since 1954, and now he's back to wreak havoc on Japan again because of this energy source. So interesting way of bringing that about. But those recreated scenes with the modern Godzilla suit, the 2000 Millennium suit, but in the 54 look with that black and white and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
with the
so they
yeah.
actually just added and pasted in the 2000 Godzilla suit. It is the same suit from the previous film, but they actually just up they made a few updates to the suit, like the head. You could easily tell the head looks different than the previous film.
Yeah.
Yeah, because in the previous film, his head kind of looks. I think it's because of the mouth.
Yeah, definitely. There's something about that expression. I almost say that it has a cat-like look to his face at times. And then to think, that why didn't they just use like the 54 shots? But it was cool to see that look. I would think that the people in 1954, if they saw the suit design look the way that it looks there, that it would be a lot more frightening. Not that the 54 film suit is not frightening for its time. It was frightening for 1954, scary and all that. But to see that kind of face peering down at you with those kinds of dorsal fins, I just think that would be amazing to see 54 kind of recreated with a different suit. So I did love that. And of course, it made me want more.
Yeah, and I gotta say, like, but in the yeah, they made a few changes, but in the in Megaguirus, but in this film, like, I gotta say like I said, they changed the head design look. I mean, they actually just made his mouth longer and wider in
Yeah.
this film, and and yeah, so So they it was so cool that they pasted in the suit and the some clips of the original 54 film, and they used stock footage and re-edited, and they, I think like you said that that the Godzilla in this one was never killed by the oxygen destroyer. It's just and
Yeah, didn't happen. Yeah, he just was out there somewhere for 50 plus years.
yeah, like I said, this is a different Millennium universe, like I said, and they and then years later they decided to like, yeah, like in the film, I have a like a short term memory. I mean, they didn't they like close down some power plants, or they just reopened nuclear power plants a few years later, like in 1966, when they when when it like it was it Osaka that opened its first nuclear power plant? I think it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're right. Your memory is good, actually. Yeah, because they were realizing that it was attracting Godzilla in '66 because they opened the nuclear power plant, and he attacked it. Of course, later on they had to figure out, can we get by without nuclear power, and they tried. They really did, but it just couldn't work. And of course, they had to come up with the alternative in the which this is the year 2001. It takes place in. It was released in. So I mean, it was. I guess it was made in 2000 in Japan, meant to be released in 2001. But regardless, yeah, they came up with that plasma alternative, and Godzilla liked that even more.
and
Ooh, thank you.
yeah, and then the yeah, and then the government decided to shut down nuclear power plants, and they actually recaptured from the original 54 the like the meeting, and then at the like it shows Dr. Umai in it, and I don't know if that's like the original actor who played Dr. Umai, or was they use a like a stock footage clip, or they just filmed some new scenes and they just added like an actor that looks similar to Dr. Umai.
That's a good question. I'll have to look that one up. I don't know that one. Maybe somebody in the chat knows.
Well, well, I gotta say this film like, took place. I mean, for that scene, it took place in the 1966 after Godzilla attacks the nuclear power plant. I mean, we all know in the original that you know that Dr. Umai looks young in 1954, and then but in this film in 1966, after the power plant was destroyed, I mean, it's just so Dr. Umai looks kind of the same as his, because it doesn't he doesn't outage as much.
Yeah, they probably could have done a better job at that. And even the footage, because it's supposed to look like old footage, it's maybe a little too crisp, a little too clear for 1966. I mean, there wasn't home video cameras running around. I mean, there was film cameras, so that would break your back carrying them around. So in 1966, anyways, 1996 when they had the other attack, you would have seen more of that, the found footage kind of look to him. But yeah, they didn't quite get that right. So there's a few things that would be considered goofs. And even you're right, that actor. He would have at least had a decade's worth of age on him, and that would have shown.
Yeah, and let's talk about the now a few years later. It is now to the year 1996, my birth year.
Oh wow,
Yep,
you young guy.
yep. If years later, Godzilla comes back, and because he was drawn into the plasma energy. It's That's why he came back in 1996. That's my I gotta say that Godzilla attack in 1996 is that's during my birth year.
Yeah, that's so cool. He didn't do anything in 1981, my birth year. He was on a little break. But yeah, 96, that would have been cool to think about that. And of course, we had it in the United States a couple of years later, the TriStar Godzilla. But, I think interestingly, we got some more Millennium series because we were hungry after the TriStar 98 film, the Sony film. And, then we got 2000, which was a pretty good hit, actually, in the United States. But then Millennium's trying to figure out its footing. And, I guess it was not such a big deal. The continuity, the fact that this is not a sequel to 2000 for us Godzilla fans, that's par for the course. Shin Godzilla is its own universe. The Legendary is its own universe.
Yeah.
This new Godzilla -1 is going to be probably its own universe. The Netflix anime series, its own universe. And so we're not, like Star Wars fans can be. It's got to be canon. It's all got to connect somehow.
Yeah.
We're, as long as it's got Godzilla in it, the human characters are just pushing the story along, and some of these other things get me to the monster action, right? So, but yeah, that's something Millennium was trying to figure out. I mean, I guess they decided in Mechagodzilla or Godzilla X Mechagodzilla and Tokyo SOS to at least have direct sequels to each other. But yeah, the next one we throw out the 2000 suit and get the GMK suit. But funny thing about this suit, and I'll shut up here. Sorry, I can ramble. This suit breaks my back looking at it because it's so hunched forward, which is probably more along the lines of what Godzilla, if he were a real creature, would look like. He would be more lizard-like. He would be hunched forward like that, not standing upright like a human being would be. But yet I think of little Kitagawa, stuffed inside of that 200-pound suit, hunched forward the way he is. I can't imagine that after the end of the day that he hadn't gone on painkillers or something, because just looking at how he had to position himself in that suit, and the fact that he's, still walking around today, as good as he can, that's just awesome to see. But yeah, that suit design, that hunched forward look, I've always looked at that and said, there's some talent, there's some strength.
Yeah, and I gotta say that this suit is still exists to this day. I mean, it was displayed in a Toho or Kaiju museum.
I gotta
think.
see that. That would be cool.
Yeah, and yeah, so and I like the Godzilla 2000 suit, and along with the Kiryu Godzilla suit from the Kiryu duology.
That's right. Yeah. It's got some good suits. I do have the X Plus figure of the 2000, so I kind of say it's got the what do you want to call it? It's got value. Yeah, there was some minor changes.
You're kind of glitching there, Nick.
Oh, sorry about that. But yeah, I got that 2000 X Plus, which does kind of work as both films anyways. Yeah, there were minor changes, but it's got those bright purple, dorsal fins, which I love. But I always think, goodness gracious, how does he not get them snagged on everything? They're just massive. I mean, they're just enormous.
Yeah, and yeah, they are just enormous. And so let's get back to what we talked about, how Godzilla was joined into the nuclear bacteria energy. They arrived in 1996, and they sent in some soldiers in with some rocket launcher guns, and that part, it just kind of makes me think of Godzilla versus Biollante. That one scene when I think it was it Gondo or who?
Yeah, Gondo, yeah. I think they called him. Yeah.
Yeah, then he launched one of the missiles in Godzilla's mouth, and yeah, it's kind of like the same thing in this one. like how's these rocket launcher guns even work? They're no match for Godzilla.
Yeah, they've thrown everything at him and the kitchen sink, and nothing seems to work. They've got missiles from airplanes and rocket launchers that are 10 times as powerful as those rocket launchers being held by soldiers' hands. And beyond the fact, Godzilla's stomping through the city and you're running from him. You don't stand much of a chance on foot. So it's like, why is it they went this direction with those? And it's clearly ineffective. At least with the anti-nuclear energy bacteria, there was a plan. There was something that was, A to B to C to Godzilla being dead, which never happened. But at least they had a plan. They were trying something. This one, it didn't seem like there was anything that was there was a end goal, or was it to just distract him? We're never really explained that, or we were trying to redirect him. If they would have told us that, that's one of the weaknesses, and we'll kind of get into this as we're going. I feel of this script. I feel like this script was really lacking in a lot of places, and there's a lot of great things about this film too. Still love it, still, love watching it. But yeah, there's things about this script that, could have used a little bit more for us,
I mean, like this film is all about some G-force trying to get rid of Godzilla, and they just want to get rid of him once and for all. And after all these years, I mean, this film, they don't never talked about Megaguirus that much, or Dracula mutation. I mean, all they talk about is they just want to get rid of Godzilla by sending him to a black hole.
I know, yeah. And it's like, you sure about that? Science tells me black holes on Earth are not a good idea.
Yeah, like, yes, I gotta say, there's no way scientists in real life can invent a machine that create a black hole. There's no way.
And if they do, keep it far away from Earth. It's like when you think about the black holes that we have in science fiction, everything about them just destroys everything around it. It doesn't care that you're aiming it at the monster. It's going to take out the entire planet. And so the entire solar system, for that matter. So I think, there was some things about that. And that's kind of the classic, isn't it? With Godzilla, pseudoscience. The Steve Reifel and Ed Godziszewski talk about that in a lot of the Godzilla commentaries, that pseudoscience, weapons that are going to kill Godzilla, like the idea of an oxygen destroyer. Destroying the oxygen in the water wouldn't really do that to Godzilla. It wouldn't make him dissolve into bones and then dissolve into nothing. It wouldn't do that. Same idea with a lot of the other science aspects. But if you put your brain aside a bit and say, let's just enjoy this, and say they came up with a scientific weapon that could do what it claims to do, sure, go ahead with it. But yeah, that whole idea of the black hole weapon, that one's a stretch to believe in.
Yeah, and then 3 months later they finally finished the machine, and then some of the parts they just show this kid who that the one who discovered the Meganula egg right after they throw the first fire their black hole into a warehouse that they're doing a test on. That I forgot I forgot what the little kid's name is.
Oh yeah, what was his name? Jun Hayasaka. And that kind of brought back the classic Showa series like with a kid protagonist. I always liked Smog Monster, Megalon, All Monsters Attack because I connected with the kid. But of course, I watched this as an adult, or at least a young adult. I was in college. And so I didn't connect so much with the kid. But he's kind of largely forgotten about halfway into the film. It's
Yeah.
like, we started with him, thought maybe we were going to follow along with him, and of course the Gamera films have the kid aspect to it as well. You're following along through the eyes of the kid, but in this film, largely we're following around Kiriko and her journey, which didn't it kind of seem similar to a lot of the other plot lines. The plot line for the Yuki special, from Godzilla. He's got he's got a revenge, he's got a vendetta against Godzilla for killing his partner,
Yeah, like that one scene in this film, when they found one of the Meganula's bodies in the ocean, they were right underneath Godzilla when he first surfaces. He was swimming, and then what's that main character's name that she was one of the soldiers and holding on to her commander officer's dog tag.
Yeah, wouldn't that have been the commanding officer, Kiriko? Sujimura, I think.
Yeah, and then she was like right on Godzilla's back, and then I don't. When I saw this, I was like, "Whoa!" And she's right on Godzilla's back, and
that was a first. That was definitely a first. Human connecting physically with Godzilla, whether they were, he doesn't even pick anyone up like Gamera does. He's not going to do that. So somebody who physically comes in contact with Godzilla that way, that was definitely, this one had a first for it. Yeah, because I can't think of another time that happened.
Yeah, and they just fired the plasma gun, ammo on Godzilla, kind of like in Space Godzilla when they fired the Yuki special.
There's a lot I can tell of the plot lines. Space Godzilla, one of them, Godzilla X Mechagodzilla, another one, that they used those kinds of ideas to bring bring the story forward. And it's almost, to me, the weakness of the script because of that, because I feel like that the character, the main character, Kiriko, that's how forgettable, unfortunately, she was. It's nothing against the actress, Kiriko, whoever played her. I think she did fine with the script she was given. But I just feel like that there could have been so much more depth to that character, her journey. What did she learn through this? How did she grow? It wasn't there. She wasn't a more compassionate person. Did she get revenge? No, not really. So there's a lot about this character that could have been fleshed out. But, on the other hand, we're also talking about it's a Godzilla film, and the humans, sometimes their story is compelling. Most of the time it isn't.
and all that, and I want to talk about the Meganula, and I just don't like saying the name that much because first of all, the Meganula has two forms, and it always has to change the name, but it's like the same name, but it's like reverse the alphabets. I think the Meganulon is like a Meganula.
Right.
So I just don't like saying these names. I mean, but in the first form, without wings, and it's just like kind of looks like the style thing kind of makes you think of Alien, because that one scene he was attacking the two couples in the dark alley, and it's almost like a dark horror film to it. And
Yeah, that was scary. I mean, that was out of nowhere. I mean,
yeah,
and that's where I can't watch this film with my kids for those scenes. The later, the monster action is okay, but yeah, earlier on, it's like, whoa, where did that come from?
yeah, and then and the freakiest thing about that part that the Megalulon it just spits vomit in that guy's mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is disgusting. It just came out of nowhere.
I know. And you're just like, were they trying to push like a PG-13 or R rating with this one scene alone? Because the rest of it isn't like this. And so,
Yeah.
that kind of comes out of nowhere. And I just was like, did they really look at this one and see, does it work with the rest of the film? Or were they trying to shock us? Hey, maybe they were.
Yeah, and so yeah, and like you just said, is that this is like a PG-13 or R rated, but on the Sony DVD and Blu-ray of it just says not rated.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. They didn't want to do it. They didn't want to rate it. So I guess,
there are only 3 Godzilla films, 1 Heisei and 2 Millennium films. I think it was 3 Millennium films that has a rated on it. Like for Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 2 is PG, and I think Godzilla versus Biollante on the VHS and Blu-ray release is PG.
Mhm.
And and then Godzilla 2000, the American version is PG, and Godzilla Tokyo SOS is PG, and Final Wars is PG-13, and the rest of them are just not rated.
Wow. Yeah. I think at least the American version, Godzilla 1985, that VHS, I believe, is a PG rated one too. But, it was New World home video, and I think they needed to put something on there. But yeah, you're right. There's not a lot of them because of them being imported. What is the Japanese rating system? We don't know. I mean, you and I don't know. And maybe they don't even have one. It's just like if you go to the movie, there could be some graphic violence and there might not be. But in this one, there definitely was.
Yeah. And then they actually put a PG rated on the original Japanese version of the Godzilla 84 on the Kraken release Blu-ray.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yep. Yeah, and so, but anyway, let's get back to the Meganula creature thing. I mean, after he attacks the 2 couples and the Meganula just right head like involves like it shedded his skin into a Meganula. Like, this is why I don't like saying his name. I'm just gonna call it the Meganula.
There you go. I'm with you on that. And I like describing it to my kids as, the bugs from Rodan.
Yeah. I'm speaking of that. I'm glad you brought that up. They actually used the same name from the original Rodan film, the Meganula.
That's right. And, they never make reference in the film directly to Rodan because in this universe, who knows if the creature Rodan even exists, let alone the story arc that had the coal miners finding the Meganula. So when I describe it to my kids, that's what I do. But that just adds something to it. You don't have to know that, but it is for Godzilla fans pretty cool to think that there was a connection there with those bugs, that they weren't just those crustacean creatures that were in the beginning of the film and then disappeared. They were just a food source for Rodan, that they could actually somehow evolve or transform or suck on Godzilla's blood and somehow mutate into the large Megaguirus, which was, at least a reasonably strong and fast foe for Godzilla. But going back to the Meganula and seeing the swarm, that idea of that, I liked that idea. But at the same time, looking at this film, saying it was 2001, and how much of the script is taking little pieces from other Godzilla films. And in this case, I felt like it was taking from Gamera Advent of Legion. And I was like, because that was a very successful Heisei Gamera film. Why is it Godzilla needs to take a story arc, or at least a piece of the story, from the opposing studio? I know, yes, it was a Toho co-production, but yet, the opposing monster franchise. I still felt like they needed to maybe come up with a different arc for the whole swarm, but yet it was still interesting to see them throughout the flooded city. That was cool. Oh, it's Michael Hamilton. Awesome. How you doing?
Yeah, I met him at gfest.
Yeah, so, and Gojira 851, thank you for being here too.
Yep, yeah, good to have him. He was on my show for Space Godzilla.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so you were saying?
Oh yeah, so I was just thinking, there was the similarities between that whole idea of Legion and then the smaller creatures, feeding off of Gamera and then giving information, DNA information, or magical substance, radiation, mutation, whatever, to the mother, or to the queen, in a sense, to make it bigger, make it stronger, and make it a mutated version. And again, they did this similar idea in Godzilla 2000 with Orga. Orga's got Godzilla DNA in him, so Godzilla's sort of facing off against himself. And again, he's doing it here. He's facing off of a bug version, a crustacean version of himself. There you go. And so it's like, how many times can we do this idea over and over again? He fights Mechagodzilla. That's a version of him, that he's fighting. And it's like, couldn't have Megaguirus, Megadula, whatever, Megabug, have been his own standalone creation, unlike even Biollante is a version of Godzilla. So it's like, does he always have to fight versions of himself? I felt like, couldn't they have given us something more original? But again, it is what it is. It was entertaining, and it was cool to see the swarms do what they did, and flying all around Godzilla, and he's just going crazy, like trying to burn him. And it's like,
I like to talk about that scene. Like, so they finally found Godzilla heading towards the island, and then this is like the first Godzilla film, Millennium Godzilla film they ever had Godzilla on an island since like Space Godzilla, and and I liked how all the dragonflies, like Megalula, and all swirl around Godzilla, and then and like you said, they suck all the energy of Godzilla or Godzilla's DNA, and they actually use like some props attached to the suit, some fake dragonfly models to give that effect, and they use all CGI dragonflies. The one thing I caught, I don't know if you noticed, but there was one part of that scene where Godzilla knocks off one of the dragonflies on his chest. I mean, but first it was shows like a stiff model dragonfly figure first as attached to the suit. But when Godzilla knocked it off, it turned into like a CGI dragonfly, and then the model just disappeared.
Whoops. I think that may have been some fixing of a mistake, but you're right. There was a lot of practical, model work with the dragonflies on him and on his body there. And I think some of the CGI doesn't look good in this film. I like miniatures, and I like tokusatsu, suitomation. That's why we keep coming back to these films. And so to see a guy in a suit and models and miniatures doing what they do, and I don't even care if I see wires every once in a while, but this film tried to do some more CGI work, and it's just it doesn't hold up in my opinion, especially Godzilla under the water. It's poor.
Yeah, yeah. The underwater CGI. This is like the second time they used it.
Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah, very terrible. And yes, yeah. And I also like the part when, yeah, the one scene where the dragonflies were following Godzilla's tail and he swirls it all around. Like, it's, yeah, I thought that part was like was awesome and a little bit of adorable moment. Like, it was when the dragonflies was trying to catch Godzilla's tail.
Yeah, and you kind of wonder if Godzilla's trying to figure out their behavior, and is it something that he can maybe figure out how they swarm, and is he going to use the motion and their behavior to his advantage? Of course, he had to get really creative when he faced off with Megaguirus, because that guy can move.
Yeah, and I also like the part when he's firing up his dorsal fins and some of the dragonflies were on it and it causes them to burn.
That was
Causing the
cool too.
flame.
Yes.
And he just blows them all out, some of them with his nuclear breath. But they could have at least made he could have used his nuclear pulse attack like in the Heisei films.
Yeah, more widespread. It doesn't need to just come out of his mouth, or away from his body to repel them, if you will. Yeah, I guess again, that continuity sort of thing, does that exist? And of course, you're seeing Godzilla with a different kind of colored breath. It's not, the blue radioactive fire breath we're kind of used to from the Showa and Heisei, kind of series. I don't mind that. I assume that because his energy source has changed to the plasma in this case, that maybe that's kind of part of the reason why, but it's okay. They can change it up every once in a while. Godzilla versus Destoroyah, that was different too. He had the red fire breath of the burning Godzilla version. That's cool to change it up every once in a while.
Yeah, and a good change too. Yeah, and also like when they finally target on him to fire the black hole, they eh, they fire it first, but then Godzilla survives it. They just looks like that's the one thing is like I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense. They finally target on Godzilla and they fired the black hole, and then the areas just explode. I mean, but Godzilla just appears underground, and that's the part I don't get. It doesn't make any sense. Like Godzilla survives, but the target was on him, and he's actually survived. I don't get it. It looks like they have missed, but the target's right on him. But how could they miss?
Yeah, there'd be no reason he would have survived if the weapon was correct. And so therefore, why did they try it even again? If it didn't work the first time, if all it did was bury him underground, then it seems like that would have happened again. And I kind of assumed that it did essentially at the end of this film. He disappears, and they talk about seismic activity kind of as a wink and a nod to the audience, but it's like, obviously I'm not convinced that it did kill him. So apparently it's useless against Godzilla. He's just too powerful. You can't kill Godzilla with your black hole weapon. Sorry about that, guys. Sorry about your luck.
Yeah. I want to talk about that one scene where when Sony releases film on DVD, like in the international English dub on the DVD, like there was a one scene where he in the workout scene when they made a it's like there was this one scene is where like is why are you trying to fire a Godzilla in his own yeah like yeah I can I don't want I hate to swear
Right.
on the because you remember the line in it in the English dub, right?
Right. I know exactly what you're talking about.
But in the television version, when they released it on the Sci-Fi Channel, they actually changed up that line too. They changed up the line to black hole.
Really? I'd never heard the television version. Okay. So that was better somehow?
Yeah,
Interesting choice.
yeah, and I gotta say, I like that guy, like that who helped with the G-force creating the black hole machine called. I always forgot what it's called. The Dimension Tide.
Yeah, Dimension Tide or
Yeah,
DT. Yeah. And that scientist is the lovable, I guess kind of like a has been loser sort of scientist. He could have been something, but decided to be, somebody just out there making magic tricks for kids and,
yeah,
getting some
especially
laughs.
yeah, especially that one scene in the beginning. It's like that he used a bowl, but it has some little robot device in it to trick the kids, and they cover in rice, and then they when and then yeah, the main character who I forgot what her name was.
Kuriko.
Kiriko showed up, and he just spoils it for him. He just reveals the tiny boss, and the kids just left. And I laugh. I laugh at that scene, and I almost felt sorry for him. I was like, why she had to go and do that? No, I lost interest in of those kids.
Well, and interestingly, he was pulling off a magic trick, yes, but I would say he was pretty impressive to build little robots like that. If I were a kid and it's like, okay, the trick was that you knew what card in the deck that I was going to pick. Sure, you're good at that. Or it's a something up your sleeve and it's like, oh, you tricked me. But in this case, the guy actually did build pretty impressive robots. You've got to admit that had my interest worked. If I were a kid, I'd be like, tell me more about these little robots that can cook food and reorganize. And I mean, one of them had a whisk on it. I mean, it was like, that's pretty cool. That's pretty impressive.
It's and yeah, I mean yeah, and he also like had this computer thing with this little emoji Pokemon looking character on his computer, like a little nurse thing, and a and then he did like in the end when he's trying to fix the dimension tie on his computer, like using this like the Camille one is it that he called his little emoji anime. Yeah, I thought that was like a cool scene. I don't know if he doing this like a if this is like a video game that it's trying to fix the dimension tide.
Yeah, it reminded me a bit, and you're probably too young to remember Microsoft Clippy. Do you remember that guy?
Hey, honestly, I don't.
That's okay. In Microsoft Word and Excel and things this would be late 90s, so definitely, but I didn't know if you just heard about it from references. It was this little paper clip with eyeballs on it, and he came on the screen, and he's like, how can I help you? Because if you're trying to write a Word document or trying to work on, making Excel do what you want it to do, he would help you. But he came on there, and he was just so annoying, and everyone just X'd out of Microsoft Clippy. And so I kind of look at it like that. You created a digital assistant essentially to do the work. So what is she actually doing in the what looked like the Matrix actually at one point? That was kind of cool. You know, she went into the Matrix and fixed the code and by blasting it, I guess. So, but yeah, it was interesting. Interesting take on that.
Yeah, and so I want to talk about the main villain of this, Megaguirus. I mean, she is the queen bee of the Meganula,
Oh
and
yeah.
she has many different names: Megaguirus, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But I
I've
call it
even yeah, go ahead.
but I even call it Megaguirus.
I've even heard it pronounced Megaguirus, which I'm like, I don't quite get gyrus, but call him whatever you will. Megaguirus. Call him what they call him in the movie.
Yeah, she was actually based on a real prehistoric dragonfly called the Meganora.
Yeah, did read that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I gotta say that she was in this like cocoon and underwater when Japan was underwater, and like what is she in a like a cocoon thing? I mean, or just her first form that that's just been underwater and never showed up on land, but is that's the one thing I don't get. He's just his her first form and it was all in underwater and it doesn't do anything. It just moves around and just laying there. After the Meganula just absorb her with Godzilla's energy.
Yeah, whatever the origin was, we have the little boy to blame for it, don't we?
Yeah, because he dropped the egg into the sewer.
Yeah, couldn't he have just come clean and been like, look, guys, I know I saw Dimension Tide. I wasn't supposed to. I was supposed to keep it classified. Oh, and by the way, I picked up an egg and came clean and maybe gave it back to the military, the G Grasper, whatever you want to call them, special forces group there, and been like, sorry, guys, I shouldn't have done that. And, and we wouldn't be dealing with the destruction that we're dealing with. But, he decided to go the easy way out and dump it into the sewer. So,
Yeah,
that was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, so Pennywise can eat the egg.
They all float down here.
Yeah, they'll float too.
Oh, frightening. And actually, if you go back to the original, did you ever see the Steven? Sorry, it's It with Tim Curry, the original.
I never seen the original, but I only saw the new one.
The creature that they fight at the end of that miniseries is very much a crustacean, alien, bug-looking thing. Interestingly, that you've mentioned that, very much like Megaguirus here. So if you go back just to see the final form of Pennywise creature that they created for that film, it's interesting. It's not good, but it's interesting. So I'll just put it that way and let you check it out on your own. But yeah, this creature is actually very cool looking. I love the design. I do think that it needs to flap its wings a little bit to be airborne. Like, there's sometimes it's just there.
Yeah, and I can say when she rises out of the water fast, when she's just flying in the air, flapping her wings first, if you look carefully at that scene, you can easily see the wires.
Yes, you're right about that.
Yeah, and to be honest, Megaguirus kind of looks like a Millennium version of Batra.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah, because I could tell because the claws underneath kind of looks similar to Batra's.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. With Batra, you had that look of closer to the larva form of Batra, and of course, trying to look essentially like a evil version of Mothra, if you will. And I liked this one with the mouth that was resembling more like Godzilla, of course, being that this is partially Godzilla's DNA, so its head design with that very menacing mouth, and the fact that he's chomping on Godzilla's chomping back at him, that they're not just using aerial attacks on each other, and they're not just using projectile attacks. And Megaguirus has a projectile attack, which is cool. And Godzilla keeps trying to burn him, and he's too fast. So I thought that was actually kind of a good challenge for Godzilla. The fact that this guy, it's like Godzilla can't move fast enough. He can't turn his head fast enough to catch Megaguirus when he gets behind him. So I thought that presented a cool challenge.
Yeah, because Megaguirus is like has a speed effect that she can fly fast. Like she can fly so fast you couldn't even see her.
Yeah. And it's like, now you see me, now you don't.
Yeah, and for Megaguirus' war, I couldn't, like, I tried doing some research what that war's how they made the war. I mean, there's no like stock war. They use Rodan's war for the rest of the Heisei Godzilla films or anything.
Yeah, it's out of nowhere, isn't it? And it's got that just high-pitched glass breaking kind of sound to it. And it would have been interesting if they tried to do something that used the Godzilla roar to I don't know, blend in with something insect-like. But yeah, they didn't go that way. Still love the Godzilla 2000 roar. You can't go wrong with that guy.
Yeah, and when Megaguirus flaps her wings very fast,
that me?
That was you.
It was me. I admit.
Yeah, and anyway, so when Megaguirus flaps her wings very fast, and it like the vibration of it just vibrates and it just hurts the human ears. It just because it's so her wings are so loud and just she goes into full speed.
There was some portions of this fight though where they do that. If you noticed, it looks like a strobe light with the frames. They remove certain frames and it looks like it's kind of skipping around at times, kind of like bad internet video, if you will. There are those times that Godzilla moves that way, and they'll do slow motion sometimes, and that works. But I felt like there's a few times that you see those frames skipping. I don't know how else to describe it, but it looks like a strobe light. And I just thought that was out of place, that they shouldn't have gone that way. Maybe they were trying to say there's something about Megaguirus' speed and Godzilla's not fast enough. If that was the idea, I guess I wasn't quite getting it. But yeah, when she flaps her wings, of course, there's times where it's like so fast, of course, and creates that kind of like wobble in the video. You know, that was kind of a neat effect.
Yeah, it was. And yeah, and her vision, her eyes, when she looks at Godzilla, is just, yeah, I think, like you said, it kind of looks like the film's glitching and a little bit. I mean, but that's Megaguirus' eye vision.
Yeah, bug vision, I guess.
Yeah, and yeah, so as she actually used a stinger, just stabs into Godzilla, absorbing his energy, like his atomic breath energy.
Boy, did it cut him to the core. I mean, that looked painful.
Yeah, and so Megaguirus just fire a fireball at Godzilla.
Yep, that projectile weapon that he's got, and he was a good foe for Godzilla. Yeah, I mean, Mothra, obviously another good foe for Godzilla. So he has the trouble with the flying creatures that come at him like this. But yeah, this one with that stinger, Godzilla had to get pretty creative, and he got his revenge on that stinger though pretty good.
Yeah, like that one scene when he that one scene when when he pulled out her stinger, it just looks like she stabs in Godzilla's mouth. As a kid, when I saw this happen, I was like, "Ooh, that's gonna hurt." It was like it just freeze there, and then yeah, I laughed so hard that Godzilla just bites it off. Sounds like a piece of wood just chopped off.
Yeah, and even I remember when he takes that stinger, he's got it in his hands and shoves it into the ground because that's going to hurt me, so I better disable it. That was another cool tactic that Godzilla had to use. Like we said, he had to get creative to fight him off here, and avoid that where he could and get the upper hand. Because he's just getting mopped. He's mopping the floor with Godzilla here.
Yeah, and the best part, he actually does, like, I don't think it never happened in any Godzilla film ever, but except in Megalon, he does like this tail effect to kick Megalon.
Yeah,
but in this one, he does like a body slam. Yeah, the body slam is so awesome. He just jumps in the air. He just falls on Megaguirus, and I thought it was pretty cool. And
yep, epic. And that brought out the WWE, wrestling, world wrestling kind of vibes. Yeah,
yeah, and I want to talk about the stinger part after Godzilla bites it off. Like, it looks like it kind of looks like Godzilla just bites all of his. I don't want to say this on my channel, but yeah, it's like Megaguirus just free to. She's not going anywhere. It's just like then Godzilla just blows his atomic breath on her and finish her up for good. That was like really cool. Like,
yeah, there was some impressive shots for the battle scene. Some of the CGI and the other scenes that we had, with the Griffin, some of that wasn't great in my opinion. It was a cool design, but too much CGI that didn't look convincing. But between Godzilla and Megaguirus, those fights, there's a lot of long shots with a lot of really great miniatures, and in some cases blending with actual city at times that look pretty good, I feel.
Yeah, I gotta say that the city facing Godzilla looks even better than the previous film, Godzilla 2000. Like the one scene he was walking on the shore, it looks so bad.
Yeah. Now I know exactly what you're talking about. And to make Godzilla look realistic, and it's very difficult in broad daylight. A lot of Godzilla films that try to make him look scary, of course, shoot at night. In nighttime, Godzilla 2000 did that with the city, of course, too. 1985. I love 1985, but I also know why they did. Yeah, but I also know why they did a lot of night shots, because seeing him in broad daylight like that might not strike that same kind of fear. But in this case, it's a battle between the two monsters. It is nice to see them in broad daylight having this battle between each other, so we can see the battle actually ensuing. But there's other battles that happen in nighttime shoots too, like Godzilla, Mothra, the Battle for Earth with Godzilla and Batra and Mothra fighting. That was done with night in mind, and but it's really well lit with the city around it too. But yeah, in this case, they decided let's give as much daylight as we can to this, and see the all-out monster attack as we can. But it is what it is. You don't have to always have Godzilla fighting at night. You can have him in daytime and switch it up every once in a while. I kind of like to see him fighting sometimes outside of a city. I love in Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 2 his fight with Rodan on the island, actually. That was in the mountains, a very cool choreographed fight scene, but we don't get to see that all the time. But in this case, he's going to fight in Tokyo, of course, because we got to have this, got to have the destruction.
Yeah, and there are some parts when they use like a flying prop of Megaguirus, but for some scenes for the like when Megaguirus bind Godzilla and hitting Godzilla with her claws. I mean, that part they actually use an actual a guy in a suit. Yeah, so there's a Megaguirus prop and a suit for it. But
That's
for
pretty
the
impressive.
yeah, but the suit is just for the scenes where when she was just biting Godzilla and clawing him, and but yeah, the suit was just only for the upper half.
She smacked him around with those claws in the face a couple of times. Pretty good.
Yeah, and also when Godzilla's underneath the building, that yellow triangle wooden thing. I mean, it's called, but Megaguirus was on top of it. I mean, is smacking it down, trying to smack Godzilla with it, and for that part, Megaguirus actually smiled. They used some CGI effect on it on the prop to make it smile.
I remember that now. Yes, and it is out of nowhere, but yeah, it's like I got you now, right where I want you, and that didn't you kind of get the idea of a samurai fight between Godzilla and Megaguirus? That was the back and forth when Megaguirus would actually like lunge at Godzilla, Godzilla lunge forward, and they would cross each other, turn around.
Oh yeah, when the Megaguirus' claw just chopped down because of Godzilla's dorsal fins.
Yeah, that reminded me a lot of your samurai action films where they cross each other quickly, turn around, and see who got damaged. You know, who's going to lose a limb or who's going to draw blood. You know, and so that was the kind of idea I got from that, and that was cool. It's like, did Godzilla get injured, or and then you're like, oh, the bug lost an arm. Cool.
Yeah. So yeah, and yes, and also I like the way when Godzilla just shakes his head fast, like yeah,
Try to refocus, I guess.
yeah, and also like right after Godzilla defeats Megaguirus, and yeah, he doesn't go back to the sea. He just goes on a rampage. He's just they and they're trying to stop him once and for all by using the dimension tide again, but it's like falling out of the atmosphere. It's like, yeah, they trying to figure out how to fire on Godzilla once and for all by using the Griffin. What's it called?
Yeah, the jet, the Griffin.
Yeah, and then
mhm.
and they actually, instead of target on Godzilla, they actually aim it on the Griffin. They target on it, and they try to but the uh, but the commander is like just escapes, and then he's just they just have the Griffin just landing on Godzilla, and then they finally fired the dimension tide to Godzilla, and then Godzilla just fires his atomic breath on it, and it finally fired on him. This time he doesn't reappear, doesn't survive this time. They finally succeed their mission. They get rid of him once and for all.
But you can't keep a good monster down.
Yep, unless they thought.
Right. Was it really the end of Godzilla? Well, in this universe, it was.
Yeah, I bet you didn't know this. I don't know if you watched the after credit scene.
No, I didn't. No.
There was an after credit scene in the end, right after
Oh.
the credit shows. believe me, I first discovered it like last year. When I watched the whole credits this time.
Okay, I'll have to
They-
look at it.
yeah, I don't know if I want to spoil it for you because you said you never seen the after credit scene before.
It's okay. That's fine.
Because I'll tell you, it shows a part at a children's school that has the same kid who discovers the egg, that he was going to meet up with his friends later. He was putting his bug stuff away in a class when suddenly the whole room shake, and then there was an explosion outside, and the kid has this look on his face like, and it actually has Godzilla's war. Godzilla survived again.
Now you've got me interested. I will have to check that out because that was not something I knew about. When we finish up here, which I'm sure we're probably getting near the end, I'm gonna put it in and check that out.
Yeah, and then the screen faded black. Yeah, man.
I will check that out, man.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was I never know there was an after credit scene until a few months ago or last year.
Did someone tell you about it? Because this is the
No.
first I knew about it or have heard about it.
Yeah, I wonder if there's an after credit scene in GMK, but there was some credit scenes in after credit scenes in against Megagodzilla and Tokyo SOS.
Okay. Huh. They were doing that before the whole MCU made that a thing, I guess.
So yeah, I mean, it's not my favorite Godzilla film, but I like the film. I mean, and yeah, before we it's almost like over an hour now. So before we wrap this out, I want to talk about a few things first. I mean, the music score.
Oh yeah.
I love the music of this. That the music score was made from a woman who was her name was I forgot her name was, but she did the same music score for the Kiryu duology against Mechagodzilla and Tokyo SOS.
Yeah, Michiru Oshima.
Yep.
And she was brought in for this one, and there was definitely an understanding there was going to be some cues from Akira Ifukube, but she came up with essentially that new millennium sound to Godzilla, and obviously got used several times, with the exception of GMK. But yeah, she did a fantastic score. And that is something that was well received for G fans. But yeah, we always have to still hear the Godzilla entrance, songs every once in a while from Akira Ifukube in this. So there was a few of those, and of course her music as well. Worked well.
Yep, and I really love the music score for it, and I can't. And good thing I have the soundtrack of it on my on my phone that I got from iTunes.
A good re-listen. Yeah, listen to that over and over again.
Yeah, and well, that's just about to wrap things up, and I want to thank you, Nick, for so much for joining me in this episode. I've been looking forward to have you since you have me as a guest on your channel, and I thought I would have you as a guest on my channel, to talk about these classic films.
Absolutely. I'm always glad to be a guest, and I'm glad to have you as a guest too, and support your channel, Autistic Lizard Productions. And I know you're doing pretty well with the subscriber base. I hope it's growing well for you and keeps going.
Yep. And yeah. And so that's just about it. And thank you again, Nick. So until next time, my next episode will be GMK, Giant Monsters All Out Attack from 2001. And
Awesome.
So, like I said in Japanese, sayonara.
See ya.